so please welcome Luke Bowley.
So my presentation is on Jack Crawford. When I asked Lewis to do this, I told him a few ideas, but I knew what I wanted to do something was about the North East, my home region, and a place that I love, a place that I feel had its own distinct culture, some of it a bit odd. For example, I could have talked about the time a showman claimed he could fly off Newcastle Castle using a balloon contraption. A case of nerves hit him just before, so he decided to test it on a donkey first. The donkey fell straight down, crushing a little girl to death. This event has been marked with a plaque. But what I settled on is a man from my hometown of Sunderland, a man called Jack Crawford, who was the city's best-known hero figure. Jack Crawford was born in 1775 in Potter's Bank in the East End of Sunderland, by far the most deprived area of the city. As a child, he worked as a keelman before becoming an apprentice on the crew of a boat at South Shields at 11. In this regard, he had a very typical early life, similar to most young boys in the city, uneducated and working as a child labourer from a young age. In 1796, it's believed he was press-ganged into joining the Royal Navy. At the time, the UK's constitution forbade forced conscription, but with the Napoleonic Wars at its height and with the British needing able-bodied seamen to defend against the French and its puppet states, press gangs across the country used other means to force able-bodied men into service. One method was to slip a shilling into a pint glass and claim that the man had taken the king's money. Another was simply to surround pubs and attack any able-bodied men that were there and take them with them. Jack served on the HMS Venerable under Admiral Duncan, the Commander-in-Chief of the Navy in the North Sea. It was at the Battle of Camperdown on the 11th of August 1797 that Jack's heroic act took place. During the battle against the Dutch, Duncan's fleet was surrounded, and in the battle, part of the Venerable's mast was damaged. In naval battle, lowering the flag is considered a sign of surrender, and so the other ships could have mistaken this for this and ceased fighting as well. So Jack Crawford, in this incredibly brave cinematic moment, under heavy fire and ash clouds, climbed the mast and nailed the flag to the top. The British Navy gained a decisive victory, one that had a major impact in its aftermath. It was a huge blow to the French's hopes of invading Ireland, and it's fair to say that Jack Crawford's role could have been vital in securing victory. Crawford was praised for his act, was granted an audience with the king, and given a generous war pension of £30 a year, though he did have to return to service following his recovery. His heroism captured the city of Sunderland's imagination, and after his death, money was raised for a statue commemorating him, which stands to this day in Mowbray Park. However, there are alternative theories, and some historians have questioned whether Crawford really is this heroic figure. And to be honest, I'm more interested in these theories. One local historian, William Corder, seen here smoking a pipe and playing bowls, claimed that he was actually a rebellious figure who, after being forced in the Navy, spent most of the time on board drunk, that he disobeyed orders and in effect should have been court-martialed. I prefer this version of events because it's truer to the heart of the city of Sunderland. The way Crawford's story has been told so far is one of patriotic fervour, when in reality Crawford was only there as a result of press gangs and the brutality of the British Army, and particularly the lack of interest in working class people. There's something more fitting about Corder's version, just a drunk northern man forced into circumstances beyond his control, looking at the carnage around him and saying, "Oh, fuck this, I'm ganning up the mast." It does a vital disservice to tell a story of Jack Crawford and many other sailors at the time in this traditional matter. Months prior to Camperdown, morale in the Navy was extremely low, and this led to multiple mutinies on the spearhead in the north, with sailors fighting for better conditions. To follow the typical story of Crawford is to tell a man with no real grievances, as someone who purely did his country for Queen and country, and damn the rest of it. I want to finish off to talk about why Jack Crawford is important to the people of Sunderland. Most of Sunderland's figures pre-1900 were either well-to-do businessmen like Joseph Swan, or tourists like Lewis Carroll, who vacationed in the city and wrote some of their most famous works there. But the main reason I think Crawford has become the most celebrated figure in the city is because he's like most of the people. He grew up in dire poverty, worked as a child labourer, and then he also died in child poverty. This was at the time, not now. That hasn't happened now. After he left the Navy, he spent all of his pension money on gambling and booze. He was the second person in the country to die during the cholera epidemic that arrived via Sunderland, was buried at a pauper's grave until the people of the city paid for a headstone years later. If Crawford was a drunken disorderly who disobeyed orders, it doesn't make his actions any less brave or heroic. All it shows is that he was a flawed hero who didn't fit into the patriotic ideals driven by British history. He was a drunk, stubborn man who lived and died in poverty. He was a hero while inhibiting the character and realism of the city, and therefore the truest hero that the people of Sunderland could ask for. Thank you. I've been Luke. Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this video, you can see others on the Bettakultcha YouTube channel. Subscribe now and you'll be notified when new ones are uploaded.